At 8:59 a.m., the Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrated over Texas while 7 astronauts were still strapped into their seats. 16 minutes earlier, it had been on schedule for landing. People on the ground saw bright pieces tearing across the sky. Some thought it was a meteor. Others reached for their phones. Inside Mission Control in Houston, the data stopped mid-sentence. One moment, numbers were moving across the screens. The next moment, they froze. They tried contacting the crew, but no one answered. The shuttle had been 16 minutes from landing. Just minutes earlier, engineers had started seeing something wrong. Temperatures inside the left wing were rising. Tire pressure readings on the left side were changing. Then sensors began disappearing, one by one. The crew had no warning that they could act on. The damage had started 16 days earlier, during launch. When Columbia lifted off, everything looked normal. Fire and smoke surrounded the rocket as it climbed. The shuttle rolled onto its back and continued toward space. Then a large piece of foam broke away from the external fuel tank. It struck the front edge of the left wing. The impact lasted less than a second. At the time, no one understood how serious that strike might be. Foam sounds soft. It looks harmless. But during launch, the shuttle was moving fast. The foam hit the wing with force. Engineers reviewed launch footage later that day. They replayed the moment frame by frame. Some believed the damage would be small. Some were concerned. Meetings were held. Emails were written. Teams discussed whether to request satellite images of the shuttle in orbit. That request did not move forward. Foam had broken off on previous missions. Those shuttles landed safely. The risk felt familiar. Columbia continued its mission in space. The 7 astronauts worked around the clock. They performed experiments in biology, physics, and medicine. They recorded data. They spoke with students back on Earth. Inside Mission Control, the concern about the foam strike stayed contained within engineering discussions. No repair mission was planned. No rescue shuttle was prepared. Landing day arrived on February 1st. The shuttle fired its engines in orbit to begin the trip home. That burn pushed it toward the atmosphere. As Columbia descended, it encountered thicker air. Friction built heat along the surface. The front edges of the wings were built to handle extreme temperatures, but the left wing had suffered damage no one had seen. The foam strike had likely cracked one of the protective panels along the front edge. When the shuttle hit the atmosphere at high speed, superheated air forced its way through that damaged area. Inside the wing, the air burned through aluminum supports. Back in Houston, engineers began seeing temperature readings climb inside the left wheel well. One sensor went offline, then another. The flight director asked for updates. Controllers responded calmly. The shuttle was over California, then Arizona. Residents heard sonic booms as it crossed the sky. Inside the wing, heat spread further. Structural supports weakened. On the screens in Mission Control, tire pressure messages from the left landing gear appeared unusual. The flight director called the shuttle about the tire pressure warnings. Before the response was completed, the transmission cut off. In Houston, the data screens began to clear. Lines of numbers and readings disappeared one after another. Within seconds, the transmission went silent. The extreme heat and pressure of re-entry ripped the damaged wing apart. The shuttle disintegrated at nearly 200,000 feet. Debris scattered across hundreds of miles. In Houston, the room went quiet. Controllers kept calling the crew. No response came. Recovery teams moved across Texas through fields and neighborhoods collecting debris. Families waited in Florida for a landing that never happened. Investigators later rebuilt parts of the left wing inside a hangar. They found burn patterns that showed exactly where the heat entered. Tests were conducted using foam launched at spare wing panels. The foam punched holes through the protective surface. The conclusion became clear. The foam strike during launch created a breach. During re-entry, heat entered the wing. The structure failed. The shuttle disintegrated. The investigation also examined decisions made during the mission. Engineers had raised concerns early. Some had pushed for clearer images of the wing while the shuttle was in orbit. Leadership weighed the options. Past experience shaped judgment. Foam strikes had happened before. The missions had landed safely. Risk felt acceptable. That judgment proved fatal. Columbia's crew had no chance once re-entry began. By the time temperatures rose inside the wing, the vehicle was already descending at enormous speed. There was no escape system, no safe place to divert, no time to understand what was happening. Inside mission control, the final minutes were recorded second by second. Temperature rise, sensor loss, pressure warnings, silence. The accident reshaped NASA. Launch cameras increased. Foam application changed. In-orbit inspections became mandatory. Repair tools were developed. Rescue planning became part of every mission. Columbia had first flown in 1981. Over 2 decades, it carried astronauts on dozens of missions. Its final mission lasted 16 days. The damage that destroyed it happened in less than 1 second during launch. When the shuttle met the atmosphere on the way home, that hidden damage turned into catastrophe. 7 astronauts lost their lives. The debris field stretched across Texas and Louisiana. More than 80,000 pieces were recovered. Investigators mapped each fragment. They traced the burn path through the left wing. They matched data from the final minutes to physical evidence found on the ground. The chain of events became undeniable. Foam separated. Foam struck the wing. The wing was damaged. Heat entered during re-entry. The structure failed. The shuttle broke apart. Columbia was 16 minutes from landing. People in Florida were waiting to hear the sonic boom announcing arrival. Instead, news channels showed smoke trails over Texas. Inside mission control, professionals who had trained for every possible system failure faced something they could not fix. The numbers stopped. The vehicle was gone. The loss followed a pattern seen before in spaceflight. A known issue, a familiar risk, a decision shaped by previous success, a catastrophic outcome. Columbia's final minutes remain archived in recordings and logs. The warning signs appeared on screens. The calls were made. The silence followed. A piece of foam drifting away during launch began a chain that ended in the sky over Texas. That is how Columbia ended. Not in orbit, not during landing, but in pieces, high above Earth, while engineers watched the data disappear.